What does the 70s disco ball and the Haunted Mansion have in common? Well, stay tuned to find out. Today at Provost Park Pass, we are doing one of the very most requested rides we've ever had, the Haunted Mansion. We're trying to reveal everything we can. Now, I just want to say this video is very difficult to make. Because of the low lighting in the Haunted Mansion, it took us, that's right, 5 different cameras and 8 different lenses to bring what you're going to see today. So I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. The Haunted Mansion has some rich and deep history about this ride. In 1951, when Walt was designing his idea, coming up with the whole architect of Disneyland, he knew at that point he wanted a haunted house. He didn't know what he wanted. He just thought maybe a haunted house, a haunted church, or a graveyard, or something along those lines. But he knew that he needed some type of attraction like that at Disneyland. The Haunted Mansion was originally designed to be the Museum of the Weird, a museum of strange and haunted items throughout the world. Look for monsters in the woodwork, the ironwork, and the wallpaper. Those are all kept over ideas from the Museum of the Weird. The concept then morphed into a haunted walk-through wax museum. Announcements were made as early as 1961, 6 years after Disneyland had already opened. But then the Haunted Mansion was put on hold for Disney to devote all of his attention to the 1964 World's Fair. When the Imagineers came up with the concept of the Haunted Mansion, they came up with like a dilapidated plans, a house that was falling apart. Walt did not want that. He felt that didn't really fit the aesthetics of Disneyland. So he has a famous quote where he says, "Disneyland will take care of the outside, the ghosts will take care of the inside." So that's what they did. The exterior of the Haunted Mansion was completed in 1963. At that point, Walt kind of had to put it on hold because he started working on some projects for the World's Fair in 1964 held in New York. Then Walt untimely passed away in 1966. At that point, there was some confusion as to what should happen within the Haunted Mansion. This was the first attraction to be completed without the help of Walt Disney himself. The two main Imagineers that took over the design of the Haunted Mansion were Mark Davis and Claude Coates, and they clashed on their concept of what they should be. Claude Coates wanted horror, he wanted to be dark. Mark Davis, he's like, no, it should be more fun and lighthearted. So what do? Boom! They combined their ideas, and that's how we got the Haunted Mansion today. Claude Coates did the first part of it, being a little darker and scarier, where Mark Davis did the end of it, being a little bit more lighthearted and fun. It took 18 years for them to complete the Haunted Mansion from the first initial conception all the way to completion in 1969. It was the longest attraction in development at Disney. The Haunted Mansion exterior is inspired by the Shipley Lydecker house in Baltimore that was built in 1803. It's around 999 miles away. Give or take a few. The Haunted Mansion is the only attraction located in 5 different lands. That's right, you have New Orleans Square at Disneyland, Liberty Square at Walt Disney World, Fantasyland at Tokyo Disney, and Frontierland at Disneyland Paris. Hong Kong has a completely different attraction known as Mystic Manor, which is located at Mystic Point, making 5. Here I am with 2 ghost hosts, with Marley and Tanner, and they're going to tell us some of their favorite things about the Haunted Mansion.
So my favorite's the Mummy. The Mummy is best friends with the deaf ghost. Mummy doesn't have a tongue, but his best friend is deaf and has a big old horn. He's like, what's that? Louder! And the Mummy's like, crypt doors creak, tombstones quake, spooks come out swinging wake,
That'd be awesome. The Mummy can't talk, there's no tongue, and the deaf guy can't hear it. All right, and Tanner, what's your favorite?
My little favorite tidbit is during holiday time when Jack comes over and takes over the house. If you look pretty far away up in the very, very top room of the house, you can see Zero flying around. You can see his little orange nose up there, so that's pretty cool.
Mind blowing. There's a lot of urban legends about this ride. One of them is that that's Brigham Young's hearse. That is not true. But I'll tell you something that is true. There is bodily fluid from when they did use it as a hearse on the inside. If you look very carefully, you can see it right on the wood panel. Right outside the Haunted Mansion, you can see there's a pet cemetery. One of my favorite things is if you look at the cat, there's all these little birds with their little tombstones as well. Right behind me, when you're waiting in line, you're gonna see all these mausoleums. I love them because most of them are puns, and puns are punny. They're not actually engraved, they're just stickers. My favorite is I truly departed. Cameraman Greg's favorite is see you later.
See you later. See you later.
Outside the house, you'll see some green ironwork, this light green ironwork with this little twisties on it. Only on the very bottom, if you look very carefully, one of those twisties is turning into a bird, but it's only on the bottom, and most people don't notice because they never look down at it. Right outside the Haunted Mansion, you'll see this cool thing, because the house is supposed to be in Louisiana. These are called, for your boots, if they're muddy, you go like this. And that's how you would scrape the mud off your shoes before you enter a house. When you go in the ride, you're going to enter a little foyer and then enter into a room with no windows and no doors. Now, most people know this, but that room is actually an elevator. And an elevator mostly works like this. You get in, there's a roof of the elevator and the floor of the elevator, and it goes up and down like this. Well, this room, it doesn't do that. The ceiling does not move. The floor goes like this, making it appear that the room is growing. The ghost host voice that you hear during the ride is actor Paul Frees. And you might recognize him. He also does a voice work in The Auctioneer on Pirates Caribbean, and he's the voice of the Grinch from, He Stole Something. Plus, he's also Boris in the children's show Rocky and Bullwinkle. He's Boris. And Boris in Rocky and the Bullwinkle show. Thumbnail Dave just said that's the best accent I've ever done. And then Cameron Greg informed me that was Natasha, not Boris. The original concept of the ride was to be narrated by a raven or a crow. I don't really know what the difference is. I think it's a raven. And you'll notice they have them periodically placed throughout the ride. They scrapped that idea and says, you know what, we need a different narrator, so they came up with a ghost host, but they left the ravens. There are 5 of them, and the cast members affectionately call those ravens Edgar, as in Edgar Allan Poe, who wrote The Raven. Speaking of narration, the original draft had Walt Disney himself providing the narration voice. Can you imagine that? But they never really materialize, and I would love to hear that. I don't know if that's true, if that really did happen, but how neat would that have been to ride through the ride and listen to Walt Disney's voice narrate it?
And then you tell me what you see. Now peek in there. What do you see?
Organ playing.
Yes.
A ghost.
A ghost is playing, sure. Yeah, well, we have all kinds of ghosts,
I'm sorry, Walt, you get the axe. In the stretching room, there are 4 different portraits. The first one is Constance Hatchaway and George Hightower. She murdered her 5th husband. Then you have Alexander Nitrokov. He stands on a keg of dynamite about to explode. Then there are 3 men in quicksand. In Disney comics, they are known as Gambler Hobbs, Big Hobbs, and Skinny Hobbs. My personal favorite is Sally Slater. She's about to be eaten by an alligator. There is a poetess named Prudence Pock whose tombstone says she died from writer's block. Has a poem that says, "In the swamp, poor Sally Slater was eaten by an alligator." It is not known if the subject on the poem and the portrait in the stretching room are the same person, but they do have the same name, Sally Slater. The ceiling on the stretching room is called scrim. Scrim is a material that when lit from behind, you can see through it. When you look from beyond, from underneath it, it looks very solid. So when they light it up, you can see through it and you can see the ghost host. That is the ghost host that has hung himself right up there. And another clue to this is when you're going through the hallway, you can see some portraits. One of the portraits, one of the biggest one, shows the ghost host. And what does he have as a tie? A rope around his neck for his tie. After you get off the stretching room, you walk down a hallway and you'll see 5 portraits. There's the werecat lady. It's a woman reclining on a daybed that changes into a striped panther. There's an aging man. A young man morphs into a decaying corpse. Next is a Flying Dutchman, a sailing ship that changes into a ghost version of itself. Then there's Edward the Prince, a knight and his horse changing into skeletons. And lastly, there is Medusa, a young woman changes from her human form to a gorgon form. This illusion is created by having these paintings painted with special black lighting paint on it. The lights are coordinated with the thunder, so when the thunder or lightning goes off, those lights turn on, illuminating the black paint on the particular portraits. The original design of these portraits had a light that passed behind them, making them change. What does a giant disco ball have to do with the Haunted Mansion? Well, when you get out of the stretching elevator room and in that hallway where those paintings are, those 5 paintings, on the left-hand side there's some windows and there's rain going. And I think it's the second window on the left-hand side. If you carefully look, you'll see a giant disco ball that is shining a light on. That simulates the rain. What? It's amazing. One of my very favorite effects is the bust ghost. The busts look like they're following your every movement. It's really a simple design. It's geometry, right? They are inverse face impressions. And as you know, in geometry, an object that's concave is pointing in on itself, making it look like it's following your every move.
Or it's just haunted.
Or it could just be haunted. Whoa, there are so many cobwebs in the Haunted Mansion. Now, how do they make those cobwebs? It's a simple trick. They take hot glue, like a hot glue gun, they melt the glue, they take a fan, and like this, and it makes a web, and it sticks to everything, and they change it about once a year. Then, you're like, how do they get the dust on it? Well, that's dust. Right as you're about to board the ride, you're gonna see 3 little flame lamps, like these little flames and then a lamp. If you look carefully, the ones at the top are the same bulbs that they use in Mr. Toad's Wild Ride when you go in to see the judge. The ride has an omni-mover system. They're known as Doom Buggies. There's 131 Doom Buggies on this ride, making it one of the most efficient rides in all of Disneyland. They were first dubbed Omni-Movers and created in the 1964 World's Fair. The new technology allowed storytellers to control what guests see and allowed for a controlled line of sight, similar to a movie experience. The Omni-Mover technology was originally used for adventures through inner space, but continues to be used for attractions like the Little Mermaid's Ariel's Undersea Adventure in Disney's California Adventure and Spaceship Earth at Epcot. When you come up the stairs, you go around, you're gonna see the very long hallway. It's called the Endless Hallway, where that candle is floating. Woo! Well, the second door on the left is a real door. That door opens and closes. People can walk in, out the second door on the left. When you ride the ride, you go down a hallway. If you look off the side, you see these framed pictures of ghosts. Originally, there wasn't any ghosts there, but as they look around, they're like, oh, we really need some kind of decorations. Those ghosts were the original concept art for the ghosts in the graveyard. So what they do, they took the concept art, framed it, put it in the hallway. You see every one of those ghosts in the hallway later on in the graveyard. As you go down the long hallway and past the floating candelabra, you'll notice a grandfather clock that strikes 13. When Madame Leota is doing her incantation, there's a book there. That book is from Blackbeard's Ghost, and what she's saying is right from the movie Blackbeard's Ghost. Here's another really cool thing. Think about this, mind-blowing. You don't see any spirits, no ghosts, until after you go through the seance room. Before that, you hear like the sounds or see things moving around, but no ghosts. Once she summoned the ghost, boom, that's when you start to see them. Madame Leota is an amazing effect. It's actually a very simple, effective illusion. Inside the ball is a 3-dimensional bust of Leota. Projected on the white bust are brief film sequences of Leota reciting her incantations. Inside the ball, the model of the face was after a Disney Imagineer named, wait for it, Leota Toombs. What? Can you get a better name for that? Her name is Leota Toombs. Madame Leota is voiced by Eleanor Audley, who provides the voice of Maleficent in the Sleeping Beauty cartoon and the Wicked Stepmother in Cinderella. When you see the reflected ghost or the see-through ghost, that's done with a trick called a pepperbox ghost that was created in the 1800s. What it is, it's a reflection off a piece of glass. So you'll notice where your eye level is, there are no ghosts. They're either above you or below you, because right above you there are ghosts, and right below you there are ghosts, and they reflect in the glass and you can see them. Pepperbox ghost trick. All right, so there is one official hidden Mickey on this ride. This is in the Grand Ballroom. You can see it, it's made with plates. It's like a dinner plate and 2 saucers. Though there is another hidden Mickey right when you get off the stretching room and you walk down the hallway. Before you see those portraits that change, there is some wallpaper there. Over the years, so many guests have touched this one spot wallpaper and it's worn the velour off of it, and it's made a Mickey head, as you can see right here. It's not an official Mickey head because this wallpaper was made in the 1800s, way before Mickey Mouse, but it's pretty cool and looks just like a real Mickey head, so I'm counting it. Count. In the ballroom, there's these huge glass planes that go all the way from the ceiling all the way down to the floor. In the ballroom, there's these huge glass planes. That's plane. So in the ballroom, you're gonna see there's these huge glass panes. They go all the way from the ceiling down to the floor. They're big and they weigh a lot. And the only way to replace a glass pane, if it broke, would be to lift the ceiling off and pull it out. Now in the 1970s, some person got on the ride with the gun and he shot where the 2 dueling portraits are. The bullet hit the glass pane and it cracked it. So what did the Disney Imagineers do? They put a giant spider there and made it look like a spider web. Though your eye usually goes right past it because you're not looking at the glass pane, you're looking at the portraits. Next time you ride it though, have your eyes focus on the glass pane and you'll see that spider. At the end of the ballroom scene, you can see a ghost playing an organ. That organ was used in 2,000 Leagues Under... Dang it! That organ was used in 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. That'd be, when I said 2,000, I meant an additional 18 on top of that. So 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, that organ from that movie is now in the ballroom at the Haunted Mansion. When you go through the ride, you're gonna see one of the most enigmatic, thought of ghosts of all. That is Constance Hatchaway. She's a bride in the attic. Now, her story started in 2006 when they did a whole refurbishment at the Haunted Mansion. She has gone in and killed 5 of her husbands. And when you go through the attic, you'll see on each of the portraits, the first portrait she has 1 pearl necklace, the second portrait 2 pearl necklaces, 3 pearl necklaces, and so on. For each husband she kills, she wears another pearl necklace. Now, the very first time you see Constance Hatchaway, though, isn't in the attic. It's in the stretching room. One of the portraits that stretches is Constance sitting on top of her beloved George with an axe in her head. That was her 5th husband. When you look at George's and Constance's photo in the attic, you'll see that George has that particular mustache, and she also is carrying a rose, which she's carrying in the portrait in the stretching room. What? The majority of the props that you see in the Haunted Mansion are real antiques. They found them at thrift stores and secondhand stores. Disney didn't make them, they bought them. Real antiques. Some of them are said to be haunted. There is a fan theory that's not supported by Disneyland, which I think is pretty cool, is that you become the 1,000th ghost. As you enter into the attic, and you'll notice as you exit out, you are to turn around and fall out of the attic. Maybe you've been pushed by the Hatbox Ghost, or Constance maybe pushed you out. And as you land, you become the 1,000th ghost. At that point, you'll notice the ghosts are having a party and welcoming you. Prior to that point, they're trying to scare and haunt you. So once you've died, they're welcoming you to the party. There is only one human inside the attraction of the Haunted Mansion besides the workers themselves, obviously, and that is the caretaker or the graveyard guy or whatever you call him. He's got the lamp. He's the only human the whole ride. Now, some people are thinking, wait a minute, what about in the coffin? You see those hands, they're like, let me out of here. That's actually a skeleton or a spook, not a human. So, the more you know. When you're riding through the cemetery, one of the singing busts' voice might sound familiar to you because that is the distinctive baritone voice of Thurl Ravencroft. He's best known as Tony the Tiger in that commercial, They're Great. And he also sang the song You're a Mean One, Mr. Grinch, in the television version of How the Grinch Stole Christmas. According to an official Disneyland press release in 1969, the Haunted Mansion cost $7 million. That's equivalent to $45 million today. Grim Grinning Ghost lyrics were written by Ex Atencio. He also wrote A Pirate's Life for Me. The music was written by Buddy Baker and was recorded by the Mellow Men. What a cool group's name. Leota haunts you twice. Little Leota, named after Madame Leota from the Seance Room, invites you to come back with your death certificate at the very end of the ride. Some people say it's the same, some people say it's different, but cast members do call her Little Leota. At the end of the ride, you're gonna see some hitchhiking ghosts. Those ghosts have names. The tall skeleton one is Ezra. Gus is the prisoner, and the traveler, well, that's Phineas with the little carpet bag. I just want to say how grateful I am to the Disney cast members who helped us make this video. This is quite a chore to do. The Provost Park Pass team rode this ride probably more than 50 times to get all these different shots, but we really wanted to do it justice because the cast members who work on this ride, they care about it and they love it, and we are grateful to them for helping us get all this information, and we hope we represented it accurately. Now, if you want to support our channel, you can by clicking that like button and that subscribe button. It goes a long way to support our channel. And our Patreon members, those who pay $3 or more a month, get an extra video of me and Amanda talking about Disney and whatever else you want. So you can go that way to support us as well. I hope you guys have a fantastic week, and who knows, maybe a haunt will follow you all the way home. Woo!